Have you ever thought about this? How does a company actually motivate someone when they can't watch them every second of the day? Or, how does an insurance company trust you're being careful once you got the policy? This is the heart of a really fascinating economic puzzle called moral hazard. So let's dive in and figure out how you pay for effort you just can't see.
Here's a quick roadmap for where we're headed. We're going to start with the big problem, unseen effort. Then we'll meet the two key players in this drama, the principal and the agent. We'll take a quick detour into a perfect world where everything is visible, just to see how simple it could be. Then we'll jump back to reality and solve for those hidden actions, look at the kinds of contracts that actually work, and finally, you'll see how this whole concept is, well, pretty much everywhere.
All right, so let's kick things off with the fundamental issue here. When you boil it all down, this whole big idea really comes down to one simple but super tricky question.
This is it. This is the core of the whole thing. An employer wants to pay for hard work, right? Not just for someone clocking in and out. A landlord wants to know their tenant is actually taking care of the place. But how can they ever be sure? They're not there 24/7. The action itself, the actual effort, is invisible.
And believe me, this isn't just some abstract theory from a textbook. It's woven right into the fabric of our everyday lives. Just think about the relationship between a boss and an employee, a landlord and a renter, or even an insurance company and you. In every single one of these cases, what one person does directly impacts the other, but their actions can't be perfectly monitored.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, economists use a really simple but incredibly powerful model. It all revolves around two key players whose goals, well, they don't always line up. Let's meet them.
The whole situation is what we call the principal-agent problem. And it all comes from this concept of asymmetric information. Now that sounds fancy, but it just means one person knows more than the other. The agent, the one doing the work, knows exactly how hard they're trying. But the principal, the one paying for it, is in the dark. And that information gap, that's where all the trouble starts.
And this chart really lays out the conflict perfectly. On one side, you've got the principal. Think of them as the company. They design the contract. They're generally what we call risk neutral. They can handle some ups and downs. Their goal is super simple: get the best possible results. Then you have the agent, say an employee. They're usually risk averse. A paycheck that goes up and down is pretty stressful. And their goal? Well, it's to get the most money for the least amount of work. See the problem? Their interests are fundamentally at odds.
Now, before we try to solve this messy real-world problem, let's do a little thought experiment. To really understand why it's so tricky, it helps to first imagine a world where the problem doesn't even exist. What if there were no secrets?
So in this perfect world, information is totally symmetrical. The principal can see everything. It's like they have a magic camera watching the agent's every move. They know exactly how much effort is being put in, down to the minute.
And in this fantasy world, the solution is, well, almost disappointingly simple. The best contract you can offer is just a fixed wage, a simple salary. No bonuses, no commissions, nothing complicated.
So why does that work so well here? It's all about managing risk perfectly. The risk-averse agent gets a stable, guaranteed paycheck, which is exactly what they want. And the principal, since they can see everything, they just write the effort level right into the contract. You will make 50 calls a day. If the agent slacks off, they know immediately and can fire them. Problem solved, because there's no place to hide.
Okay, fun's over. We don't live in that perfect world, obviously. So let's snap back to reality and deal with the real challenge. What do you do when you can't see what's going on? Back in the real world, we have that asymmetric information again. The principal can't see the effort. The only thing they can see is the result at the end, the final sales figures, whether the project succeeded, the outcome. And to make it even harder, that outcome isn't just about effort. There's always some randomness, some luck thrown into the mix.
So the sequence of events here is really important. First, the principal puts a contract on the table. Second, the agent looks at it and decides, is this deal good enough for me to even bother? Third, and this is the crucial hidden step, the agent decides how hard they're actually going to work. And finally, the result happens, and the agent gets paid according to whatever was in that initial contract. So any contract that's going to solve this mess has to clear two major hurdles. The first is called the participation constraint. Basically, the deal has to be good enough that the agent wants to sign it in the first place. It has to be better than their other options. The second, and this is the big one, is the incentive constraint. The contract has to be built in such a way that it makes the agent want to choose the high-effort option.
Okay, so how on earth do you write a contract that actually does that? How do you motivate somebody that you can't even watch?
This little table here is the key to the whole thing. We've got 2 levels of effort, high and low, and 2 possible outcomes, high and low. Now, the crucial part is this. If the agent puts in high effort, the probability of getting a high result, that's pH, is way bigger than the probability of getting a high result with low effort, which is QH. Hard work doesn't guarantee success, but it sure does stack the deck in your favor.
And here is the elegant solution. It's a real game changer. If you can't pay for the hidden action, the effort, then you pay for the visible outcome, the result. You design a contract that ties the agent's pay directly to the measurable success they achieve.
So let's make this real with the numbers from our source material. In the ideal contract, if the agent delivers a high result, they get paid a wage of, let's say, $4. A nice, solid payday.
But, and this is a huge but, if the result is low, the wage is 0. Zip. Nothing. That huge difference is what creates the powerful motivation.
The beauty here is in the simplicity. The contract essentially says, if you deliver, you'll be rewarded handsomely. If you don't, you get nothing. When an agent looks at that, the choice becomes crystal clear. Putting in high effort is the only logical move because it dramatically boosts their chances of hitting that big payoff. The incentives are now perfectly aligned.
So, there we have it. We've gone from the problem to the solution. Now let's just zoom out for a second and see what this all really means. Let's just quickly recap. We started with this problem of hidden actions, which we call moral hazard. We realized that if you can't see what someone's doing, you have to get creative. And the solution is a clever incentive contract that gets everyone's goals pointing in the same direction. By tying pay to performance, you make it in the agent's own self-interest to do exactly what the principal wants them to do. It's brilliant, really.
And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. Now that you have this framework, this new lens for looking at the world, where do you see moral hazard? Is it in the commission your salesperson earns? The deductible on your car insurance policy? The stock options that a CEO is given? Once you start looking for it, you'll realize this isn't just theory. These incentive structures are absolutely everywhere, quietly shaping our world.